today's video is going to be the first part of ranking all of my eyeshadow palettes that I had tried in the year of 2021. I have tried a total of 20 palettes that aren't ColourPop. So I tried 20 palettes from all different kinds of brands. There are some first-time new brands to me in this first part. I'm going to be ranking 20 to 11 in this first part, and then the second part will be my top 10 palettes of the year. I actually am going to be ranking 3 palettes in one in the top 10, so it's more like a top 12, but I couldn't decide which one I liked more, and they're all from the same brand, so it's going to be a top 12, but in this half it's going to be 20 to 11. And then for my ColourPop palettes, I am just going to be ranking them all in a separate video because I tried 12 ColourPop palettes this year. That's the most I've ever tried from ColourPop in 1 year. So I figured it deserved its own video, and it's just easier to rank them within one video. And also, I tried so many new brands this year, so if you guys don't like that, I'm sorry, but then that means I would have had to rank 32 palettes this year, and the videos would have just been really, really long. So you guys know I love ColourPop. They're my favorite brand. So let's just jump into the bottom 10 palettes. So let's start off with number 20. Honestly, this was the biggest disappointment this year. Honestly, none of the palettes I honestly tried this year were bad. I was pretty dang impressed with all of the palettes I tried this year. Honestly, I didn't really try a dud palette this year. There have been some duds last year and the year before that, but this year I was actually really happy with all the palettes that I picked up. But this was by far the biggest disappointment and probably one of the most expensive palettes in this video that I was just not impressed by. And number 20 is the Naked Urban Decay Wild West palette. You guys, I don't know what Urban Decay is doing at this point, but they are just not the same quality as they used to be anymore. I don't really know what's happening with the brand, but honestly, like, not too many people like Urban Decay that much anymore. I mean, yes, the Naked palettes do sell, and I understand why they want to keep the Naked theme going. I totally get it. And there's nothing wrong with this color story. I actually think it's really pretty, but honestly, this palette is kind of boring to me at this point. I tried so many other good palettes this year that this is honestly probably the only palette in this entire video that I'm thinking about decluttering, because I never actually do declutter too many Naked palettes at all. The only one that I did declutter was the second Naked palette. The first and the third are too old for me to use. So I picked up this one because I wanted to get like a new updated Naked palette that had some neutrals and some pops in it, because I can't use my first Naked palette anymore. But I think at this point, I think I'm over the Naked palette formula, because there are so many amazing formulas that I tried this year that this just fell short for me. I feel like the shimmers are kind of lackluster in here. The mattes are nice, but I find them extremely dry and kind of hard to blend. And that used to not be my experience with Urban Decay. And at this point, I also picked this up to kind of update my Dream Street palette from ColourPop, because it has an extremely similar color story to that palette. And that palette is getting old, but honestly, I still prefer that palette over this one. Just, it's nice. There's honestly, it's a decent formula, but honestly, for the price that you pay for Urban Decay and the price that you pay for high-end shadows now, you really expect the formula to be better. And honestly, I have been so impressed by other formulas that are way cheaper this year and last year from indie brands and other brands that are just killing it with eyeshadows, that this just kind of falls short for me. I didn't pick up any other Urban Decay palettes this year, just this one. And honestly, I was really disappointed with this. And the reason why I got this, originally I wasn't going to get this, but the Urban Decay lover in me, because Urban Decay used to be my favorite brand. Honestly, I was really impressed with most of the other products that Urban Decay came out with this year, but as far as their eyeshadows go, I don't know what's going on because everything else has been pretty high quality that I've tried from them. So they need to do something with their eyeshadow formula because it's just not good anymore. So that's number 20. Number 19 is actually a palette that I got for a pretty good price. And I had never tried Bobbi Brown's eyeshadow palettes before. And this one is actually really, really nice. So this is the Bobbi Brown High Bar Eyeshadow Palette. Now, I'm honestly thinking I'm probably going to declutter this as well, just because I just wanted to try this out. It's nice, but honestly, in all practicality, I'm probably never going to reach for this again, to be honest. I did use it quite a bit when I first got it, and it is really pretty, and when I look at the color story, it actually is really stunning. There's some great mattes in here. The mattes actually blend really beautifully together, and the shimmers in here are gorgeous. So definitely more impressed with this formula than the Urban Decay. Bobbi Brown is known to be pricey. The full retail price of this is $59, but I actually got this for half price at Nordstrom Rack. So I only paid $29 for this, so I thought that was a pretty good deal. And these like shimmery, glittery shadows are really pretty. I think that this is a great palette to transition from day to night because you have these really pretty like neutral tones here, and then you can throw on one of these like really sparkly shades to transition to nighttime, and then you have like a look to go out. But other than that, I don't know, like it's pretty, but I don't think it's necessary for me to keep this in my collection. It's a nice formula. The last time I had actually tried Bobbi Brown when I was when I was growing up, because my mom used to get us like the Bobbi Brown single shadows. I know that those are expensive, but we got like quite a few things from Bobbi Brown, and I hadn't tried like, you know, an updated eyeshadow palette from them, and I still think that their formula is really good. But as far as me using this again, I don't really see myself reaching for it all that much. But it's a really nice formula, so I do recommend it. If you guys see it at Nordstrom Rack, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It actually is really, really pretty. I'm not going to swatch most of these. I'm just going to rank them. I've swatched them like a million times. I will swatch some of my favorite shades in the palettes, but there's not like too many shades that are like super standouts for me in a lot of these palettes. I'm just talking about the formula and the color story overall. So number, what is it? 18. So did I say 20 and then 19? Hold on one second. So number 18 is a brand that I'm actually kind of switching up my rankings a little bit as I'm filming this, because I'm like, I kind of like one palette over the other. So number 18 is a brand that actually Mary Moods and Makeup was begging me to try. I think I might end up decluttering this palette as well and probably trying a different palette from them. So number 18 is the Glam Shop. I believe this is the Naturals and Basics palette. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just a 9-pan neutral palette. So this is the Glam Shop neutral palette. So this is a 9-pan neutral palette that comes with 6 mattes and 3 shimmers. Now, there is nothing wrong with the formula. It's actually stunning, and this is such a good neutral palette, but let's get real, you guys. How many neutral palettes do I actually need at this point? There's nothing really super unique about this color story. It is really pretty, but the problem that I have with this is that the mattes flake so bad when I'm using them, like when I'm dipping into the pan. Even when I'm not using like a pointy brush, like I do use a pretty pointy brush to define my crease area, but they flake so bad, like I can barely touch the shadow. And then the pigment goes like everywhere, and it's such a mess. And you guys can see like some dents in the matte shadows, especially in the 2 darker shades, because I use like this one to blend out my crease area, and then I usually use this one on the outer corners. And I love how deep and dark some of these mattes go. They're beautiful, and you could smoke out and smoky up like any neutral eye, and I do think that these shimmers are beautiful. But again, it's very similar to my Going Coconuts palette from ColourPop, which I prefer over this one. It's still a really good palette, but I think what I'm going to do is probably try and find a different Glam Shop palette, or just take a break from trying anything new, because I already ordered a new palette that's going to come in mid-January from a company I've never tried before either. So I'm going to think about Glam Shop. It doesn't mean I'm not going to try more from them in the future. But as far as the palettes that I'm going to end up decluttering this year, I think this one and the other two I mentioned are going to be it. Just, I can't stand how the mattes flake in this. It's like really bad. It gets so messy and like all over the place. The shimmers are really pretty, but again, I don't really need this palette, but we will see. But it's pretty. Shimmers are super intense, but in all honesty, I don't really need it that much. Okay, number 17 is the Gourmand Girls and Bad Girl Lecta Volume 2 Exquisite palette. Now, this palette was actually sent to me by Debutante, aka Debbie, for joining her membership on her YouTube channel. For becoming a member of her YouTube channel. And this was one of the perks that you get when you join. And she sent me one of the Gourmand Girls palettes. Now, I had never tried Gourmand Girls before. This was actually the only palette that I was eyeing from Gourmand Girls. And I really, really like this palette, you guys. None of these palettes that I'm ranking after that Glam Shop palette are palettes I don't like. Every single palette that I'm ranking now, I love them. They're all amazing. This is just based on color story and formula, but the formula is so good in here as well. The mattes are super pigmented, and then the shimmers are just beautiful. It's just, as far as color story goes, I'm not going to be reaching for this type of color story all the time, but I love the mix of cooler toned purples and warmer tones in here. I've been kind of I've been kind of getting into those types of looks more so this year. I've been kind of being a little bit more adventurous with my eyeshadows this year, and I've been putting together color combos that I never normally would. I mean, today I'm wearing a neutral eye, but I just didn't really care, and plus I'm testing out a palette that's going to be in the second half of the rankings. This is another new palette to me. But yeah, as far as formula and color story, this is beautiful, and I absolutely love Christina. One of the sweetest people I've ever known, Christina Gourmand, which is the owner of Gourmand Girls Cosmetics. And this is a great palette. The shimmers are beautiful. The mattes are really pigmented. I don't really have much else to say about it. I honestly probably wouldn't have tried Gourmand Girls Cosmetics until the That Time of Year palette came out with, of course, Debbie, Riri, and Adventures of Xenia, because I 100% was going to pick up that palette, but I'm kind of glad that I was able to experience what their formula was like before this, before that palette came out, and I'm definitely not disappointed. Their formula is beautiful, one of the best matte blacks in here. The colorful shades are super pigmented, and the shimmers are stunning on the lid. So, yeah, gorgeous. Okay, so number 20, 19, 17, 16. Number 15. So there is absolutely nothing wrong with this formula. I'm ranking it at 15 based solely on the color story. And number 15 is my very first palette from Hipdot, and this is the Hipdot Clueless palette. Now, look at the packaging. So super soft and cute. I freaking love it. It's so adorable. Everybody knows how much I love Clueless, the movie. I am a Clueless girl. Absolutely love Cher, Dion, and Amber, and Ty. Just, Clueless has been one of my all-time favorite movies for a really long time. I've been watching it ever since I was a teenager, like 15 years old. So for a good 15 years or so. And I just love Clueless. Me and my sister used to watch it all the time. Even me and my best friend used to watch it a lot. But the problem that I have with this, I mean, the shimmers and the mattes are actually gorgeous in here. The shimmers are so beautiful. I really didn't think that Hipdot's formula was going to be that good, but it's really, really good. The mattes are super buttery and smooth and pigmented, and the shimmers are stunning, just beautiful. And their formula is so easy to work with. So the only thing is that I wish that this palette wasn't so shimmer heavy. The mattes in here are really, really pretty, but I don't understand why they put this matte red in here when there's like other like pinky base colors in here. I mean, I was able to create quite a few looks with this palette, but every time I used it, I was always pulling in like a deepening shade or like another crease shade because I found that, you know, this palette isn't really a standalone to use by itself because there's not really those deepening and defining shades in here. There's like this matte peachy brown, then like this red shade, and then a lavender, and like this is like the only deepening shade. It's like a berry pink. So that was the only thing. I really think that they didn't need both of these blue shades. I feel like they could have replaced one of these with like another matte, like a deepening brown or like even a matte pink or even like a red shimmer to complement the red on top. I thought would have been perfect. But I feel like, again, the shimmers are stunning in here, but I just feel like as far as the color story goes, they didn't need all of these shimmers in here, but they are beautiful. I'm just going to swatch a couple of them for you guys. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this formula. It is beautiful. I mean, look at that. That's the shade Whatever, which is that pinky shimmer. And then that's the full-on Monet, which is like a matte red. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. And again, super easy to work with. Have no complaints about the formula. I was really impressed with the formula. And this was one of the first new brands that I tried on this list besides Gourmand Girls. And I can say that I've fallen in love with both of the formulas because I have been wanting to try Hipdot for a long time, at least for a couple years at this point, and I thought since they came out with a Clueless collection that this was the perfect opportunity. I was like, I'm 100% picking this up because I freaking love Clueless. I was just wishing that it was ColourPop that did Clueless, but I'm kind of glad it wasn't so I could have an opportunity to try the Hipdot formula. So that is number 16. So number 15 is another Hipdot palette, but I like this color story more, which is funny because there's less shades in here, but I think that this color story is way more cohesive than the Clueless palette, and this is the Addams Family Hipdot palette. Now, as far as me reaching for either of these palettes, I'm not really going to reach for them too much after the certain times that you get them. And in all honesty, I wasn't really going to get this, but I just thought it was such a cute little palette, and I thought that the collection was so pretty. Yes, the color story is kind of similar to the Milk Cosmetics The Waiting Room palette, but I do like how small and compact that this is, and you get 3 shimmers and 5 mattes in here, so I do like that you get more mattes than shimmers, and again, I like that you get more mattes than shimmers in this, and that's why I'm ranking it higher than the Clueless one. But again, I love the Hipdot formula. I've only used this one about 3 times, but that was enough for me to use all 3 of the shimmers, and they are beautiful on the lid, super blinding, and the mattes are beautiful, so pigmented. I love using these colors together. I love using like these as quads where you can use the berries and the reds together, and then you can use the blacks and the grays and the silver and white. It just creates a really pretty look. I did an Addams Family look for Wednesday Addams with this palette, and it turned out beautiful. I used some of the like blacker deepening shades, and it was just so pretty. So I'm just going to swatch a few. They're just so buttery smooth, you guys. Like, so good. So there are some of the shades. This one's like a shimmery white called Bones, and then you have like a silvery gray, which is called Moon. Look how those reflect. This is Bones, Moon, and Caramia. And Caramia, I mean, again, they're so smoothing and buttery, like, and that's how they apply on the lid and in the crease. They just blend out beautifully. And the Caramia is a really beautiful red. So I really like this palette. I even think this would be a fun travel palette to bring if I was traveling. I'm not traveling anywhere because of COVID. So, that was number 15. So number 14. You guys, I don't know why this palette got so much flack, but I love Melt Cosmetics, and this was actually the only Melt palette that I tried this year, and I really, really liked it. I probably am in the minority because a lot of people were having trouble with this palette, but I think it's beautiful. So number 14 is the Melt Mary Jane eyeshadow palette. I've been wanting a cannabis-themed palette from Melt for quite a while. I didn't really dig the color story of the 420 palette or the Smoke Sessions palette, but I thought that this color story was really pretty. I didn't really have too many palettes with like these shades and tones in here. It's a really beautiful cool tone palette. I mean, look how pretty this is. I think that this is a gorgeous color story. And I really love this palette, you guys. And I just wanted to say before I rank the rest of them, I have tried every single shade and every single palette that I am ranking for you guys at least once or twice. I mean, I had to try all of them at least once, but I've tried every single palette and worn all the shimmers at least once or twice in every single palette. So you guys are getting a true ranking video because I have tried absolutely everything. So this is number 14, and I really love this because I think that the shimmers are so multi-dimensional and beautiful. They're so metallic and sparkly, and I really, really like them. I mean, yes, they are a little bit flaky, but honestly, it doesn't really bother me. And once you put them on the lid, they really do transform, and they're so freaking pretty. And then Melt's matte. I mean, are you kidding me with that pigment? Their pigment is insane. When it comes to their matte shades, I mean, again, they are a little bit flaky when I swatch them, but you can't beat Melt's pigmentation. So that one is Beau, that one is Santa Maria, and then that one is, which one is that? Rubia, I believe, right? That Rubia? It looks like it. Just gorgeous. I mean, they really do just sparkle and shine on the lid, and that's why I like them so much. And honestly, I didn't really have too much trouble with them like flaking or fallout. And they say if you have trouble with flaking or fallout with these, just spray your brush before you apply it to your lid, or you just do your face makeup first to wear these. Because yes, the shimmers will flake a little bit, but I think that they're beautiful. And I actually don't want to drop the palette. Okay, sorry guys. That was my bad, but this is not a very easy palette to hold because Melt palettes are pretty big, and this is probably the most expensive palette that I'm ranking in this video, but I think it's worth it. I really love the Melt formula. I now have 3 Melt palettes in my collection, and they don't disappoint me. I think their formula is beautiful. Some people say it's inconsistent, but I really like it. Really didn't have any problems with it, and I think that they're beautiful. The only one that I don't absolutely love, I think, is the shade Cali. Is a little bit harder to apply to the inner corners, and it's not as metallic as Mary Jane, but I really like it. And also, I didn't love that there was only 4 mattes in this palette, when I first got it, I'm like, there's kind of some repetitive shades, but honestly, when you actually apply these shimmers to the lid, they do look way different. None of them are the same. And the mattes in here actually work beautifully with the shimmers. I thought I was going to get bored that there was only 4 mattes in here, but these mattes work so well with the rest of the palette. And since you have this shade Sensimilla in here, it's a really beautiful deepening shade. And you guys know how much I love deepening shades because I like giving myself a little bit of depth and dimension. So that is the Melt Mary Jane palette coming in at number 14. So number 13 is a brand and formula that I was extremely impressed by. This was actually the only palette in this entire ranking of this video and the next video that I didn't watch reviews on first, and I just bought it on a whim, and I was like, I really hope the formula is good. And the formula is so good, you guys. And I'm talking about number 13, which is the Moira Always on My Mind eyeshadow palette. Now, I would have ranked this higher if there was actually more shimmers in here, but other than that, the formula of this is so beautiful, you guys. Moira is such an underrated company, and this was the first time that I was trying Moira's formula, and I love this palette. I think that this is so pretty. I love that there's a ton of mattes in here, but honestly, we probably could have done without this color here and maybe some of the other colors, and maybe just put, what I really would have wanted was like a shimmery gold or shimmery like white shade to just have like an inner corner highlight. But all of the mattes in here are very beautiful, but some of them are a little bit redundant since I have half of these shades in my collection already. But the mattes are so dang buttery and pigmented and smooth, and the shimmers are like butter, and they just look wet on the lids. I was so impressed with their formula. I was like, I didn't think they were going to be this good. And I think this palette was not even like $20. So it's actually a really great bang for your buck as well. And I just think that they're so pretty. And again, the mattes just blend beautifully, and I love the shimmers. They're just not like swatching the best, because I kind of get some hard pan, but super metallic and beautiful. This matte yellow is actually really good. It's going to swatch a little bit patchy, but it's actually gorgeous on the lid. But they're so pigmented, you guys. Like, I just didn't think they were going to be that good. Wow, these mattes are swatching better than the shimmer. But you really just have to apply the shimmers. I think that this one's just getting a little bit of hard pan. So there are some of the shades. Look how pigmented those are. They're so pretty. So we have Thoughts, On My Mind, and Me and You. Just very buttery smooth formula. Super blendable. Very impressed with their company. And this was the first time I've tried anything from Moira Cosmetics. I also had ordered 2 of their blushes and their highlighter because their blushes were super hyped up this year, and nothing disappointed me. Spoiler alert, I loved their blushes too, but not enough people talked about the eyeshadows, and their eyeshadows are beautiful, extremely underrated. So I would say if you want to try anything from Moira, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. They're kind of like a super underdog in the makeup industry, and I do think that this palette is definitely worth giving it a try. Or any of the palettes in this collection are so good, but I think that even if you got like a neutral palette, I mean, I got this because it was so gorgeous. I love the packaging, and I love the concept of like being like a box of chocolates, and I would take this over the chocolate bar palette any day from Too Faced. Let's not drop that either. But again, the only reason why it's ranking a little bit lower is just because I wish that there was a little bit more shimmers in here, like maybe just one more shimmer, because then I just feel like it would have been a little bit more easier to use. Okay, number 12. Number 12, excuse me, is the Wednesday Cosmetics Blood Moon palette. Now, this is a indie brand palette. First palette that they've ever come out with. And this is a palette by one of my good friends that I met through Debbie. And her name is Bree. And she has come out with her first eyeshadow palette this year. And we are just all so proud, and we actually think that this palette is amazing. I think this palette is phenomenal quality. Just the color story is so much fun. The only reason why I'm ranking this lower than it probably should be is because they're just colors that I'm not really gonna use all that often. And you guys know I'm not like a super user of color all the time. Like I said, I'm usually wearing neutrals, but if you want to go for something that's affordable, that is pigmented, that is a beautiful palette, if you want to look for something that's colorful, this palette's only $25, you guys, and the quality that you get in here is so damn good. The mattes in here, again, super pigmented. Look at that blue, look at that red, and guess what? It shows up exactly like that. And I am barely touching the pan. Look at that pigment. Look at it. It's so gorgeous, you guys. I mean, can we just take a minute to appreciate the mattes in this palette? That actually swatched better in person than it looks on camera. Look at that. So we have Selenology and Penumbra. I mean, like seriously, just stunning. And then we can also just swatch one of the shimmers. I really love Celestial. It's a really gorgeous duochrome. It's like a white and pink shifty duochrome. Really gorgeous. I tried to wipe off the shadows as best as I can, but it is just so gorgeous. Just look at that. I mean, beautiful, reflective. I really have been enjoying this palette with mostly every look that I've created. I've only used it a few times, but every time I've used it, I loved how my eyeshadow turned out. Again, so pigmented. And this black, wow, just amazing. One of the best blacks I've ever used as well. I mean, usually I'm not really let down too much by blacks, but I love that she put a black in here so you can deepen up any look. Again, just super good. And I just cannot believe how good the quality is of indie brand shadows. I mean, what are these high-end brands doing? Like, I feel like less and less people are going to buy high-end because indie brands are going to become more affordable like this and just have better pigmentation and more creative color stories and more fun things coming out that I really think people are kind of getting bored with mainstream at this point. And honestly, there's a lot of good brands out there, including Wednesday Cosmetics, that people should be trying and supporting because this palette did blow me away. I think that the quality is amazing. Okay, you guys. So we only have one palette left. Sorry if I am kind of getting like a little bit tired. I am tired. I feel like I'm forgetting half of the things that I wanted to say, but I think I'm good. So number 11 is the Haus Labs Love for Sale eyeshadow palette. I was actually a lot more impressed with this palette than I thought I was going to be. The last palette that she came out with that had like this bigger pans, honestly wasn't that good, and that was the Stupid Love palette. But as far as the quality and blendability and wearability of this palette, I really, really like it. So the only thing is that I don't really understand why she put this warm tone matte in here when it doesn't really go with too many other shades in the palette. I mean, I guess you could put these two with this one or these two with some of the golds, but I think honestly I've only used this one once, but I have used the entire palette. And the shimmers in here are really, really pretty and metallic. And the mattes in here, again, Nothing wrong with Gaga's mattes. Her mattes are actually one of the best matte formulas I've tried. They are amazing, but I was really nervous that this palette was not going to be as good as her first palette, the Glam Room 1, and I think this one's even better because Glam Room 1 is good, and I thought that that was a good start for her brand, but Stupid Love was, you know, kind of a dud as far as the shimmers go, but there was nothing wrong with the mattes in that palette. They are so good. But I just think that this palette is so glam and sophisticated, and I feel like I always feel like kind of bougie when I'm wearing this. I do like that the price is pretty good with this palette. It's like $50, but you get like 18 shades, and they're actually really good. Look at that pigmentation. I'm getting so tired. I feel like I have to go. Oh my goodness. So tired, you guys. It's also a huge palette, so just be careful because we don't want to be dropping more palettes. That's where what some of the shades look like. Look how those swatch. So we have Love for Sale, which is the signature shade. We have Just One of Those Things and Dina. Really, really good, and again, was very impressed with this palette. I was a little bit nervous about it, but I knew I was going to pick it up. I pretty much collect all of her bigger palettes like this. I don't necessarily get every single palette from her that's less than like 5 or 6 shades because I didn't get any of those like Bad Romance quads. But if she had come out with any palette that is in this layout with the 15 pan or less, like 8 pan, then I was going to pick it up because I love Gaga. But I actually think that this palette is really, really pretty. A lot of people were saying that it was similar to the Urban Decay Born to Run palette. Since I never got that palette, I don't think it's that similar, honestly. And I'm thinking it probably has a better formula than the Born to Run at the rate that they're going with their eyeshadow formula. I know that's an older formula, but I really like this, and I prefer this over Urban Decay, and I think that, again, the mattes blend beautifully. I also love that it has a Tony Bennett theme. I thought that was such a beautiful way to honor him. And yeah, this palette is great. So yeah, that's pretty much it, you guys. So please like and subscribe. Follow me on my Instagram at CPW819 and check out my Poshmark at the same handle. And stay tuned for my top 10 probably very, very soon. And please let me know what your least favorite palette was this year in your comments below, because I kind of want to know what your least favorite palette was. And then in the top 10, we can say what our favorite palettes were or what our favorite palette was in general this year. I think that would be really, really fun. So yeah, I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.